Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Q. In this video, we will calculate different indexes measuring the industry's structure, conduct, and performance, and also discuss their limitations. We'll also describe examples for vertical integration, horizontal mergers, and conglomerate mergers, and explain the economic basis for each type of merger. We'll explain the relevance of Herfindahl-Hirschman index for antitrust policy under the horizontal merger guidelines. In the principles of economic study, we learned that for the short run, businesses cannot adjust firm size. They're stuck at one firm size with its short run average cost curve. Assuming that the short run is within a year for a restaurant, hypothetically, then beyond a year, the business has long enough time to adjust the firm size with a different short-run average cost curve if it wants to. So each of the short-run average total cost curve represents a unique firm size. This average total cost curve for the short run represents a relatively small firm size, while this one represents relatively large firm size. And if we draw a smooth line enveloping the minimum short-run average total cost curve, we get the long-run average total cost curve, or a better term is called the planning curve. It tells the firm that if it wants to produce at a certain output level, it should produce at what plant size to minimize short-run average total costs. For example, if the firm wants to produce at 15 units of output, it better produce at the firm size illustrated by the green short-run average total cost curve, or the 1980s firm size to minimize costs. If it chooses any other size like the purple one, or the yellow one, it won't minimize the per unit costs like the green one does. All the others per unit cost is higher than the green firm size. Further, it tells one that the size and output level that not only minimize short-run average total costs, but also the long-run average total cost. Here it is 21. 21 units minimize the long-run average total costs, also minimize the short-run average total cost whenever it's a firm size of black, or 1990 or 2020 firm size. This is called minimum efficient scale. It is the smallest output that not only minimizes short-run average total cost, but also long-run average total cost. It is efficient in the sense that it minimizes the average cost. Scale is size. So efficient scale is the firm size that minimum per unit cost. But what's the meaning of the first word, minimum? Because as opposed to having one single firm size to minimize average cost, some industries may contain firms in very different sizes that are equally successful. Because the nature of the industries results in constant returns to scale. Constant number returns to scale. The business produces at output of 11 shares the same minimum average cost with business producing at output of 22 or 24. If firm size changes, the minimum average cost does not change. The firm enjoys constant returns to scale. An increase in output like 10% leads to an exact same increase in output, 10%. That's the meaning of constant returns to scale. In this type of industry, firms producing the same product or service in vastly different sizes coexist and are successful. This is only true for a certain type of industry, like the restaurant industry. We see small family-run restaurants as well as chain stores. So we have a range of firm sizes that are equally efficient between 11 and 25. But which is the minimum efficient scale? Minimum here is the smallest size that minimizes the average cost, that is 11. In this context, output 11 is the minimum efficient scale, not 25. 25 would be the biggest or maximum size that is efficient. Why is minimum efficient scale so important? Because it defines how many firms at most can survive in this industry, which is the first important component of industry structure. What's the meaning of industry structure? The short answer is how many firms can survive in this industry and how do the firms within interact with one another? Do they compete or collude? How many firms can survive? The smallest n is decided by how big the market size is, or how many units of the products or service the consumers will want, the BQ, and how many units each firm can produce, the minimum efficient scale, or a small q. The number of firms an industry can accommodate at most is the ratio of the quantity demanded by the market and the minimum efficient scale produced by each firm. For example, if the consumers in the city needs 20,000 megawatts of electricity at the prevailing rate, and a coal-fired power plant can easily produce 21,000 megawatts within the established facility, then the market only needs one firm to satisfy the consumer's need. This is called natural monopoly. It is a monopoly because of the nature of the production as opposed to some strategy or agenda of deterring rival companies. If another power plant is introduced, the two of them would split the 20,000 megawatts of electricity production, each produce 10,000 megawatts. The corresponding average cost will be higher than the one when only one power plant produces. Another example is for a small airport in a relatively rural area. There probably is only one airline serving the flights originating and terminating at the airport, as passenger volume is small and service from one airline is adequate. On the other hand, if the average cost is minimized when a firm produces at output level of a small amount, let's say 5, while the market demands a quantity of 20,000 units, then the industry needs about 4,000 similar firms to produce enough amount for the market. And there probably are some degree of competition among the firms. Now, please note that market is dynamic. It changes all the time. The market size declines dramatically for the airline industry during the COVID pandemic. We see a lot of airlines shut down or even exit the routes with low demand. The airline industry after the pandemic restructured again as demand is back. Now, why does a manager need to care about market structure? There are several market structure factors that influence managers' decisions. The first one is how many rival firms the business must compete against in the industry, and the relative size for each firm within. What's the technology and cost level for the industry and each firm? What about the consumers? How large is the market demand and how are consumers responsive to price changes? Are consumers different in their tastes or preferences? And are there barriers to entry or exit? Can outsiders easily enter the industry and split the market? Let's look at the first one, market or industry concentration. It measures the size distribution of firms within an industry. Like, are there many small firms? Or are there only one large firm or a few large firms? Or does the market accommodate firms with different sizes? There are two measures for industry concentration. The first one is called four firm concentration ratio, or C4. It is a sales summation of the top 4 firms within the industry. S represents sales of the firm. S subscription T represents total sales of all firms within the industry. Then, sales of the top 1 firm over the sales of all firms within the industry is the market share of the top 1 firm. For general expression, the market share for the ith largest firm is a sale of firm I over total sale of the industry. The second index to measure industry concentration is more widely used. It is Herfindahl-Hirschman Index, or HHI. It is a summation of the squared market share for each firm within the industry. According to the Department of Justice, the HHI takes into account the relative size distribution of the firms in the market. It approaches zero when the market is occupied by a large number of firms of relatively equal size, like a perfect computation market structure, and reaches its maximum of 10,000 points when the market is controlled by a single firm, like a monopoly. The Herfindahl-Hirschman indexes increases both as the number of firms in the market decreases and as the disparity in size between those firms increases. The agencies generally consider markets in which the HHI is between 1,000 and 1,800 points to be moderately concentrated, and consider markets in which the HHI is in excess of 1,800 points to be highly concentrated. And the Department Justice check HHI among other indicators to examine if they should approve a merger or not. They check the change in HHI after the merger to see if the merger is going to result in a very concentrated market and therefore limit the options of consumers. Here's an example. It said that suppose an industry is composed of 6 firms. 4 firms have sales of $10 each, and 2 firms have sales of $5 each. So the first 4 is top 4 firms. What is the 4-firm concentration ratio for this industry? The total industry sales will be the top 4, each 10. So top 4 is 40. And the bottom 2, 5 for each, 2 of them will be 10. So total sales will be $50. The sales for the 4 largest firms are 40. So the 4-firm concentration ratio is 40 over 50.8. The 4 largest firms in this industry account for 80% of the total industry output. And it is close to 1 means this industry is fairly concentrated. There's less competition. Consumers have fewer options to choose from. Here's a practice. Please pause and try and come back for the answer. All right, here's the answer. So first of all, you're supposed to calculate the total industry sales. The top 2, the first 2 got $10 for each one, so 2 of them 20, and 1 got 30, so 20 plus 30 is 50. And the largest firm's market share is 30 over 50, which is 0.6. The other 2, each one got 10 over 50, which is 0.2. So according to the Herfindahl-Hirschman index, we're supposed to have 0.6 square plus 0.2 square plus 0.2 square. The whole summation multiplied 10,000. The final answer is 4,400, which is larger than 1,800, which is pretty concentrated market. There are some data for the representative industries for firm concentration ratios and Herfindahl-Hirschman indexes. Are those data consistent with your expectation? All right, there are some limitations for the 2 measures of market concentration. The Bureau of Census does not take into account the foreign firms in the U.S. market. Therefore, the market concentration index, such as the Herfindahl-Hirschman index, overstate the market concentration. For example, the U.S. automobile market is quite penetrated by foreign firms, like by Japanese cars or European cars. Second, without noticing the regional characteristics, the indexes could understate the market concentration. For example, there are plenty of airlines in the United States, but most of the airports are dominated by one or a couple of airlines. Consumers in the rural areas may only have one airline to choose from. Thirdly, how we define an industry and product classes also influences the market concentration indexes. For example, are we discussing soft drinks as close substitute like colas? Or are we talking about a much more broadly defined notion of soft drinks, which also include birch beer, root beer, fruit drinks, ginger ale, iced tea, and lemonade? The definition for industry changes concentration indexes. Industries differ regarding the technologies used to produce goods and services. There are capital-intensive industries like petroleum refinery industries. Firms on average use one employee for each $5 million in sales. Those industries demand heavy investment in building plants, installing facilities and machines. And one firm has the capacity to generate output on a large scale, which means the industry does not need a few or a couple, or even the industry only need a few or a couple or even one firm to satisfy the market demand. They feature monopoly or oligopoly market structure. There are also labor-intensive industries. For example, growing coffee requires intensive manual work such as picking, sorting, pruning, weeding, spraying, fertilizing, and transporting the coffee beans. Plantation workers often work under intense heat for up to 10 hours per day. Labor-intensive industries tend to accommodate many small-scale firms, which feature perfect competition market structure. There are 25 million small-scale farmers producing 80% of the world's coffee in South Africa, South America, and South Asia. More than 25 million of the small farmers satisfy the perfect competition market characteristic that there are a large number of firms or sellers in the industry. And for a cup of coffee you pay in the morning, only 10% of the payment goes to the cost of coffee. Within the 10%, growers and farmers only get one slice. That means if you pay $5 for a cup of coffee, the farmer in Brazil gets about 5 cents. International traders and a coffee brewery get the highest margin. Here's a video about the coffee growing industry by Reuters. Highlands of such a Within a given industry, if the available technology is the same, firms will likely to have similar cost structures. If the technology varies across firms, then the firm equipped with the best technology has a cost advantage. As the number of firms that can survive in an industry is decided by the ratio between the market demand and the firm's minimum efficient scale. When the market demand, the numerator is low, it accommodates few firms. And when it's high, it accommodates many firms. Finally, elasticity of demand varies from industry to industry. To be precise, the elasticity of an industry depends on how you define the industry. The demand for a particular brand or product, like 7-Up, will be more elastic than the demand for the product group in general, like soft drinks. In markets where there are no close substitutes for a given firm's product, the firm is the only source for buyers to purchase from. This firm dominates the market as a monopolist. Then the elasticity of demand for that product is the market elasticity of demand for the product group. The demand for the individual firm's product will be more elastic than the overall industry demand, as consumers can find alternative firms for products. However, for an industry as a whole, it's less likely to have a close substitute. Why do we need to care about the elasticities in examining the nature of industry? Because they help us to calculate the Rothschild index that measures the sensitivity of price of a product group as a whole relative to the sensitivity of the quantity demanded of the single firm to a change in its price. The numerator is the price elasticity of demand for the product group of the industry, while the denominator is the price elasticity of demand for the product of one particular firm. Therefore, the absolute value of the denominator is larger than or equal to the numerators. If the absolute value of the denominator is very large relative to the numerators, it means that the consumers have a lot of firms to choose from and are able to be responsive to the price change of one firm's product. There are a lot of substitutes. The Rothschild index is close to zero. On the other hand, if the absolute value of the denominator is very small, means consumers are not or cannot be responsive to the price change of one firm's product. There barely is any substitute for the firm's product. Here's an example. It says the industry elasticity of demand for airline travel is -3, and elasticity of demand for the United Airlines is -4. What is the Rothschild index for this industry? We can see it is -3 over -4 is 0.75. It is pretty close to 1, means consumers have a limited number of substitutes. They have a limited number of airlines to choose from given the airport and given the route and itinerary they want to choose from. Here are the market and representative firm demand elasticities and their Rothschild indexes for selected U.S. industries. See if they're consistent with your expectations. The final structure variable is the potential for entry. The easiness or difficulty for entry of an industry is decided by barriers to entry. It is influenced by several factors. To summarize, high capital requirements, patents, and large economies of scale are associated with high barriers to entry. Next, let's discuss how conduct or behavior of firms differ across industries. There are four of them. The first one is price markup over costs. It's measured by Lerner index. It is calculated as follows. The numerator is the difference between price and the marginal cost of the firm. The denominator is the price. When there are plenty of firms in an industry, firms will then face intense competition. It cannot price their products much higher than its marginal costs because rival firms may undercut the price and compete and attract consumers. Therefore, the difference between price and marginal cost is small. The Lerner index is close to zero. On the other hand, if there are a few firms in the industry, firms will then have monopoly power. It can charge consumers much higher a price than their marginal costs. The Lerner index is close to 1. Furthermore, if we rearrange the formula, we can rewrite price over price 1 minus MC over P. The we rearrange it, and we move price to the right hand side by itself and move the 1 minus R to the left hand side. We got this. So price equal to 1 over 1 minus L multiply marginal cost. Well, the inverse of 1 minus Lerner index is the markup factor over marginal costs. It defines the factor by which marginal cost is multiplied to obtain the price of the good. Let's do a practice. Please pause and try and come back for the answer. All right, this is the answer. The Lerner index is the difference between price 300 and marginal cost 200 over price 300 is a third. The markup factor is the inverse of 1 minus Lerner index. 1 over 1 minus a third. The answer is 1.5. Price is 1.5 times of the marginal cost. Interestingly, many restaurants, many businesses use this as rule of thumb. They normally price their products 1.5 times of their marginal cost. Here are some Lerner indexes and markup factors for the representative industries in the US. See if they're consistent with your expectations. The second conduct variable is integration and merger activity. Integration unites productive resources of firms. It can occur during the formation of a firm. A merger is the most common form of integration. It refers to two or more existing firms unite or merge into a single firm. Firms easily gain market power by merging as the market share of two firms together is bigger than the one of each separate firms. The merger also helps firms to reduce transaction costs, especially for vertical integration. A merger also enables firms to achieve economies of scale or scope. Lastly, a merger may help firms to gain better access to capital markets. There are three types of integration. The first one is vertical integration. It means that for various stages in the production of a single product, the upstream firm integrates the downstream firm or the other way around. An example is that Coca-Cola Company acquires Great Plains Coca-Cola Bottling Company as the soda giant brought in its bottlers in-house. Horizontal integration refers to the merger of two or more similar final products into a single firm. For example, the wave of consolidation in the U.S. airline market among legacy airlines after 2000. Delta and Northwest Airlines merged in 2008, followed by the United and Continental Airlines, and lastly by American Airlines and the U.S. Airways in 2015. Lastly, conglomerate mergers refer to the integration of two or more different product lines into a single firm. In many cases, companies are worth much more together than separately. A metaphorical equation 2 plus 2 equals 5 describes one of the main advantages in conglomerate merger. An example will be Amazon and Whole Foods merger. Amazon, the largest e-commerce firm, got into brick-and-mortar stores and expanded its grocery business after the conglomerate merger. Next conduct is how much money the firm spent on gaining technological advantage. Research and development. The firm may get a patent by doing so. Here are some percentage that the research and development expenditure account for in their sales for the representative firms. See if they are consistent with your expectation. We can see pharmaceutical firms spend the most on their research and development for new medicines or treatment. Food industries spend the least for research and development. Another expenditure made by firms to promote is to promote brand awareness and attract consumers. Advertisement. Here are the values for advertisement as percentage of sales for the same firms. We can say food industry actually spend a lot on advertisement and the least on research and development, while pharmaceutical is the opposite. They spend most on research development and very limited on advertisement. And tire and rubber, plastic parts spend the least on advertisement. And they also spend very little on research and development. Lastly, performance refers to the profits and the social welfare that result in an industry. It is important for managers to recognize how they vary across industries. Dansby-Willig Performance Index is used to rank industries according to how much social welfare would improve if the output in an industry were increased by a small amount. When the Dansby-Willig Performance Index is 0, it means that the welfare of the industry is maximized. There will be no gains if firms are induced to alter their output. On the other hand, if the index is greater than zero, social welfare would improve if industry output were expanded. When the index is 1, it means that the industry is very poor in performance. Here are the Dansby-Willig performance indexes for selective industries. We can see the textile industry performed the best in generating social welfare, as its index is the smallest. The chemicals industry performs the worst though. Alright, that's all for this video. I will see you in the next one.